Welcome to this part of the programme, which is looking then at enablement and how we can truly enable the people in which we look after. And I'm going to talk to you about a model called the trusted assessor model. And the trusted assessor model is all about somebody who's able to carry out assessments and identify minor adaptations or adjustments to a home. Now, this is a community domiciliary service, however, works really well in residential and nursing homes as well. So the trust assessor model is a known model that's been in social care for a while. So we'll just run through the basics of it. Now, further on in your course, there is a lot more to this, but we're just going to helicopter over it today because this is really just an understanding of enablement. So the purpose of being a trusted assessor is that you can review, order, and recommend minor adaptations or adjustments for people in which you care for. Therefore, you should be able to identify chair and bed raisers, equipment for bathing and showering, identify ways of supporting people to go up and down the stairs, looking at raised toilets, equipment for toileting, grab rails and steps, purchasing stools, and mobility aids. So the idea of a trusted assessor is somebody who in each of your services is able to carry out these assessments and order and prescribe the right pieces of equipment for your service users. And again, this doesn't really happen that frequently in residential or nursing homes. So this is a great model to start introducing and looking at your local authority on how you can do that. So we're going to cover the roles and responsibilities of a trusted assessor, understand some of the basic health and safety stuff, look at why this is important, so the enabling part of living independently, looking at the selection of equipment and how you can select, look at constraints that affect the environment and the area, looking at assistive technology and how we can use that to promote independence in care, and look at reporting and ordering. But again, the reporting and ordering is borough-led, so it depends who your borough is. So there's lots of information out there around being a trusted assessor. Your occupational therapy departments have lots of stuff. There's some referencing books. So further down in Canvas, you've got your referencing books and the competencies. And again, once you have passed the module of being a trusted assessor, you should do an annual update just to keep up to date with it. And we'll look at other areas of responsibilities. So as from today, you're going to learn the principles of a trusted assessor and just start to apply them in your everyday role. Okay, so roles and responsibilities. So what does CQC say about being a trusted assessor? So the trusted assessor approach is obviously an integrated approach to stop the delay in discharges. So in other words, to release those bed blocking that's going on in the HS. And it's about providing safe and appropriate discharge into adult social care services. So that could be domiciliary care, that could be residential or nursing home. The new approach allows adult social care providers to adopt the care that they provide, look at different assessments and make recommendations under the Trusted Assessor Agreement. Trusted assessors must have the necessary qualifications to carry out the role of a trusted assessor, and that's what you'll do in this course further down. And you'll obviously look at how you can make real recommendations for equipment and definitely for discharges. If you were to do this course independently from this course, it normally costs about £900 each for you to do this programme. And obviously you're doing it as part of this course, so you'll get a separate certificate that will make you a trusted assessor off the back of this. Not after this class, but the class further down, okay? So Trusted Assessor Agreement basically has a memorandum of understanding, and that's agreed by CQC, local authorities, and you as a service provider. So you need to talk to your employers about what you can and can't do around this Trusted Assessor model. But basically, if you prescribe to it, if you sign up to it, it means you'll be able to order equipment and adaptations from your equipment stores, from your local county councils, and you'll be able to make recommendations for improvement for people a lot quicker, especially if they're being discharged rapidly into your homes. And equally, if you have somebody coming into your home for a short period of time, for you to discharge them home, you need to make sure that they've got the right equipment and adaptations in their home to thrive. So it's all about working together for care homes, domiciliary agencies, hospitals, hospices to promote independence and supported living. Again, adult social care providers will need to specify what you can and can't order, so it does differ from borough to borough, but you'll normally get a list of what you can do under the trusted assessment model. Trusted assessment discharge arrangements fall under the Health and Social Care Act. They meet regulations 9, 10, 11 and 12 of the Care Act 2014. So actually, there's lots of benefits of having a trusted assessor in each of the homes in which you work in, because it means you'll be able to identify recommendations for improvement for equipment, better ways of working, and that enablement bit, which we keep talking about. And we'll talk about how that's more relevant to you in your home care. And obviously, the trusted assessor makes decisions for discharge and care plans, and again, making sure that they get valid consent. So if a care plan changes, you get consent to change that care plan. The trusted assessor can obviously work out of hours, and normally you would talk to your local borough, your local social services, regarding discharges of out of hours. So if you're going to accept a referral into your service, you will need to have had the paperwork over and some agreement on what you're going to do for short notice provisions. And that's because you have to do that clinical assessment up front. You have to start preparing your environment to receive this customer into your service. Providers are required to meet the regulations under the Health and Social Care Act 2018 and the Care Act 2014, and they must be reviewed and adapted into response to the changing needs. So in other words, each customer in which you look after should have their own assessment around the trusted assessor model. Trusted assessors undertake the assessment on behalf of the adult social care provider. So if you undertake this role, and again, this is something that your organisation needs to talk to the local council about, but under it, each home gets their own agreement. There'll be things that you can authorise to do and not do. Your home may not want to do this, that's fine if they don't want to do it, at least you've learned about it and you know that the system is there. However, it's free to do, and adult social care, I'm sure, would love you to do it, because the more you can do, the less that they can do. And what this trusted assessor model does is it removes the social worker from this triangle, because that's what can delay admissions and discharges. So you would obviously keep the assessment plan under, you would obviously do your assessment, keep it under review, and then update the assessment plan in agreed in normal ways of working. So we've already covered this morning about what the Care Act allows us to do. We've covered what an assessment looks like and what all of those agreements are. When you conduct a trusted assessor assessment, so if you are looking at prescribing equipment and adaptations for the people which you look after, you must make sure that you're able to raise the concerns, order the equipment, and get that sorted out. And equally, there must be a clear agreement on who is responsible for what. So if you are getting equipment from equipment stores, so you're borrowing wheelchairs or commodes or grab rails or hoists, whatever it is you're borrowing from social services, there needs to be an agreement on who's going to look after that equipment, normally the equipment stores. So the role of the trusted assessor is to ensure that patient assessments are done in a timely fashion, because it means you can do them. Negotiate between care home managers and facilities and services on who does what. You work in partnership across the whole health and social care system, so you need to know who the social worker is and other people. You have an ongoing relationship with the hospital and the discharge team. So if someone's going to discharge somebody into your care, before you do, let's make sure we've got the right stuff. You'll develop a pathway across all organisations, make sure that you have ongoing updates, clear lines of communication, and clear lines of reporting. You should be identifying potential sources of conflicts, maintain accurate levels of record keeping, ensuring that you maintain client records, look at key clear indicators that demonstrate the effectiveness. So if you do this role, what's the benefit for you and the people you look after? Obviously, complete any communication and monitoring reports as required. Most local authorities will want you to complete some kind of report. demonstrate commitment to the services of sharing good practice, and attend any relevant steering groups. So each borough that you live in will have their own trust assessor steering group that you can join. So, let me just move on. So, personalisation looks at choice and control over the person leading their life. And it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. And that's why it's really important that you can manage people and expectations. It all starts with understanding the choices that people have. So, for example, if people are on a direct payment thing, they have the ability to pay for their own care. They can pick who their service provider is, and they have a certain budget in which they can spend on care. The next one are top-ups. So there's a way in which they can top up their money and their benefits. And again, that could be for equipment, adaptations, or other things. Or you can have a service-led assessment, and that's where social services pay for equipment and adaptations, etc. Because the reality is, personalisation costs money. If you have somebody coming into your home and you've got to buy a different heightened chair and buy a different heightened bed, or buy grab rails and handrails, or you've got to buy different plate guards and different knives and forks for their different conditions, that all costs money. Okay, that's got to come from somewhere. But equally, by doing direct payments and top-ups and service agreements, it does allow informed choice. So it does mean that we can enable this person fully to be independent. So where does this all come from, and why are we doing this? Well, the Care Act 2014 was very clear when it was written. It did not intend for people to stay in care homes or nursing homes until they died. That's not what it was designed for. It was designed to improve independence and promote well-being with the chance of people to go home. Okay? It wasn't you're going into a care home to die. It was always with the view that we should be able to promote you to a point of recovery and to discharge you back to a home safely. Now, granted, I hear you all going, Steve, that's not going to work. You know, we've got patients with dementia and end of life. And that's different because there is a certain proportion of society which this doesn't apply to. But on the whole, we shouldn't be putting people in residential homes or nursing homes because that's the only choice. What we need to be demonstrating under the Care Act 2014 is that we are enabling people to move back to main services, okay? Because that's the whole point of it. So we can do that by empowering people. So truly looking at what they can't do and promoting their independence. And that takes creativity and time. So looking at equipment and adaptations to promote independence fully. We then have to look at protection. So again, doles, liberty protection, safeguards. Prevention, what can we stop from happening? So that's that health promotion bit. Proportionality, so how much of the time do you need? Partnership, who else is involved in this? Is it just a care home problem or is it a community problem? Can we have a district nurse still come back, or could we have a mental health team still manage this person? Accountability, so that's putting the person at the centre and having proper outcomes. And all of that comes out of the assessments, and from those assessments, we start looking at outsourcing. Equally, the Care Act was all about ensuring equality. So ensuring that everybody, regardless of their physical or mental impairment, are able to live a normal day and carry out normal day activities. So those tasks of live daily living activities that we did in care planning is what the Care Act intends people to do independently without help. And if we are going to take away help from each person under each of those activities of daily living, we need to explain what reasonable adjustments we made, what equipment and stuff we could have done, and why that doesn't work. So when we assess people, we are assessing them in our mind, not to stay with us, but to go back to a home, to go back to living independently. And at the end of the assessment, if after all of the adaptations and equipment, we can't do that, then that's when they are then placed in residential or long-term healthcare. And the reality is, even when they come to you, there is a lot of things that can still be done in your homes to promote independence with the right equipment and adaptations. Okay, so this is a bit of soul searching for you in care homes, because only you know what you do or do not do in your care homes. Okay, however, if the goal under the Care Act is to get people out of your home, because we don't want bed blocking, and we only want people in your homes that are truly vulnerable, then we need to be looking at other resources. Equally, the Mental Capacity Act 2019 amended now looks at the informed decisions, best interests, and the least restrictive practices. So I'm not going to worry about this because that's not relevant to what we're doing at the moment. Right, let's go back. So what we're saying is each person normally from hospital should have an OT assessment. They should have an occupational therapist or a physio give you some idea around what the person can and cannot do. And the idea of the OT assessment is to look at their skeleton and muscular systems to go, what can I do? What can't I do for myself? So for example, they're going to assess things around physical, sensory, or functional loss. So can I move my arms? Can I lift my legs? What can I do for myself? And that's what you would expect the occupational therapist to do on discharge. The reality is there's not enough OTs to manage discharge. So we're at the point where trusted assessors should be able to carry out a functional assessment to go, do you have the ability to perform this task? Yes, no. Do you have the ability to perform this task if I gave you a piece of equipment? And that piece of equipment could be anything. It could be anything from a catalogue of stuff. And would it promote your independence, and would it empower you to do it without the help of a carer? So the more we empower our people physically with equipment and resources, the less we have to do. What the trusted assessor is allowed to do is they're allowed to issue straightforward solutions. You can issue low-cost equipment, and it can only be for conditions that should be static. So in other words, we know what this condition is, we know what's happening, and it's not going to go up and down and yo-yo around. And service users should be managed to do tasks that they may struggle with. So when we're doing that assessment for activity daily living, what equipment and adaptations could we do for every single task? Now, if we can't do it, we need to do what's called as a refer on. And a refer on is basically, we're saying, look, actually, I think this person could do it, they just can't do it with the support that I can give. So actually, it may be, let's say we've had somebody who's had a stroke, it is a static condition, and maybe they've lost mobility in their left arm and it's clenched. Maybe with physio and occupational therapy, we can loosen that arm up, maybe with a bit of diclofenac, maybe with some hand muscles, and maybe over time, we can re-enable that arm movement. Then actually that needs to refer on, because you're not physios and OTs, you can't do that. You haven't got that right equipment. So we would do a refer. We'd go back and say, look, we want to help this person, but we can't do this all. If the customer lacks capacity to make a decision, again, you need to do a refer on, because there'll be a best interest meeting. Is this the best outcome for that individual? In your environment, so this is in the homes, can you adapt the home to meet that individual's need? So for example, if you think about your dining rooms, do you all have, I assume, and I'm going to assume, you all have those wonderful armchairs, the big ones with the high backs and the nice arms that they can easily get in and out of? Do you all have those? Yeah. So you'll see in a minute how they don't help people, not everybody. They'll help some, but not all. And the reality is that might be a simple adaptation, which actually would promote somebody to get up and walk freely, but that piece of equipment just isn't there for them. And we'll talk about that in a second. So simple environment adaptations is easy. It may be a bit of bathing equipment. I know a lot of the modern homes now have all the built-in wonderful baths, but again, it may just be something as simple as a bathing board that you could use for a simple adaptation. or even by the bed. It could be a handrail, just get them in a bed or a monkey bar or whatever it is. It's down to you to kind of think about what it is. And if it's not on your equipment list, you can't order it or prescribe it. Equally, who is maintaining the Zimmer frames, the walking sticks that they're using? So the elephant nozzles on the end, you know, those plastic nozzles with the rings on. Who's updating those? Who's making sure that they're not worn out so people don't slip and do all of that? So there's lots of things about what you've already got in your home. Is it fit for purpose? Who's maintaining all of this? How do we know that the environment is right? So I'm not going to go over that because this is what you'll do in the full course. So reflection is an important part of reablement or enablement, because we should be able to look back and go, has that worked? Has that not worked? And that takes reflective practice. And reflective practice is a skill, and that's why it's a unit, it's a standalone unit, unit 18 and 19 in your apprenticeship, because the only way that we can improve care is by reflecting, looking at what happened, did it work, what was my feelings, so what was I doing at the time, what would I do differently, what was positive, and now what? And I think you find that's Ralph's reflective model there. So you can either use Ralph's reflective model or Gibbs' reflective model, but ultimately when we're assessing a patient, we need to be looking at some level of reflection. So the trusted assessment model looks at the person, it looks at their tasks and their activity, it looks at the environment, and it looks at the equipment. So I just want us to think about our customers in our homes, okay? So customers in our homes. Can you give me an example of an enablement activity around supporting people to eat and drink? So we're going to support somebody to eat and drink. How could we enable them to do it?
Let them do it. You just supervise them.
Okay, but how could they do it?
They can have a special spoon that might help them.
Okay. So let's start at the basics. Okay, let's go through the journey of somebody just eating something. Okay, and all of the things that we could do to make that experience better. So let's just say we've got Margaret. She's not mobile and she's in a wheelchair. So what would we do with Margaret who's in a wheelchair? Do we wheel her to the table in the wheelchair and leave her in the wheelchair, or are we going to transfer her to a chair?
Transfer her to the chair.
So we're going to transfer her to the chair, okay? Anyone else?
Her choice.
Okay, it is her choice, but we're trying to promote her independence. So if it's about promoting her independence, does she need to be transferred to that chair? Because that's going to involve maybe a moving and handling activity. The reality is she could use the wheelchair to get to the table herself, and therefore she can stay in that chair, can't she? She could. Worst case scenario, you know, we're talking about, could you do this in your own home? The problem that we have with that is if she stays in the wheelchair, what's the problem with dining tables?
Too high.
They're either too high or too low, aren't they? Meaning we would have to have a table adapted to allow a wheelchair to go under. But if we did that, if we got the feet that goes under tables, just a simple block, you could raise the table just enough so the wheelchair would sit under and she would be sitting comfortably at a table. And by that simple adaptation, you've now empowered her to go and sit down at a table for a meal by herself. She doesn't need transferring into another chair. She could do that quite happily by herself, couldn't she? And it's that level of thinking where we need to be. So the person, okay, she's not mobile, but the task is just, can she get to a dining table? That's the first bit. Then we're going to talk about her dexterity and her eating. So when she's at that dining table, what could we do to assist her if she does struggle? So I think you already said the adapted spoons.
Yeah.
Yeah. What else can we do?
With a plate guard.
So you can put a plate guard. So we've got plate guards. We've got adapted spoons. What else have we got?
And the light glasses. that she can hold on.
Yeah, so we've got the zippy cups with the lids and maybe so they can use those. And what's the problem with a plate? If you start putting in a plate guard, what tends to happen?
The plate to move.
The plate moves. We put a slip mat down. So we could do a slip mat, plate guards, adapted knives and forks, adapted cups, and we're off, aren't we? We're off. We've made all of those adaptations, and now I don't have to assist her. She's able to do it herself. It could be the fact, and this is the evidence in dementia care, that we don't do wet food, but we do finger food. So we can use meals that they can easily pick up and feed themselves with their hands. So again, I don't need to be sitting there supporting somebody to eat if we then change the menu. So it may be the fact that we can change, rather than providing wet food like shepherd's pie or spaghetti bolognese, we could adapt that to maybe things like chips or fish fingers or something that's a little bit more tangible where they can pick it up and eat with their hands and their fingers. So again, it allows them the opportunity to be independent. So we just need to think much more widely about promoting independence, because we talk about it all the time and it's really hard to think about, well, how can I do this? And actually, when we think about some of the minor changes that you could do and make the environment right for people, because if we think about the social model of care, the social model of care basically says the world discriminates people with a disability. And that's because we don't live in this perfect three-dimensional world. But if we did that, then actually, I don't need to support Margaret anymore. I could be supporting somebody else who's much more vulnerable and helping those that need it. Yeah, does that make sense? It just takes a lot of thought to look at somebody through their world, through their eyes. And if you think about bathrooms, so when we go into a bathroom and we support somebody to go to the toilet, if they're left-handed or right-handed, it makes a difference on what side the toilet roll is, doesn't it? But in all the homes, they're bolted to the wall. So again, that's not promoting independence, is it? We are discriminating and de-skilling people just by the environment through the lack of thought of the environment for that person. And if we wanted to promote their independence and we wanted to promote them to give personal care, moving that toilet roll holder to the other side may just be the trick. And it could be something as small as that that makes the big difference. And the only way we can do that is by going back to task and watching that task all the way through. And that's what the trusted assessor does. They monitor the activities of daily living and go, what can I do for you to replace that? So if we think about then the armchairs that you all have, and normally what we say is, Margaret, that's not your chair. Anyone can sit in that one. Yeah, is that a common phrase in care homes? When Bill and Bob are arguing over whose chair it is and you go up to them and go, that's not yours, it's everyone's. The problem with that is we're all at a different height, aren't we? And our knees, when we sit down, we should be at 90-90. So our knees and our feet should be at 90-degree angles. Now, if the chair is too high, we can't get out of it. And if it's too low, we can't get out of it. And if it's too high, it's a trip hazard. So the reality is chairs actually should be measured for the person that's using it. Because if it's not personal centered and it's not adapted for the environment, for the individual. So it does make it a little bit more difficult, doesn't it? Because there are some chairs where people get in and they can't get out. So again, we just need to start thinking about, if I swapped that chair over, I probably wouldn't have to get Margaret up to go to the toilet. She could probably get out the chair herself. It's just that she's sitting in the wrong chair. So there's things in which we can do to start promoting independence. No different to in the morning for washing ourselves. We could do a perching stool. So do you know what I mean by a perching stool? Have you all seen a perching stool? No. Okay. So a perching stool, it's like a stool, but it's got a back and a side to it. So it's like a really tall chair, but it slopes a bit. And what it means is the person can almost stand but sit, so they kind of perch. And what that means is they can wash themselves at a sink quite happily and brush their own teeth because they can reach everything. So just by getting a perch installed from your equipment store changes the fact that this person now doesn't need you to help them wash or brush their teeth. They can do that because they can successfully get to the sink without any support. So as we go through this session and we look at empowerment, this is what we're looking at. What can we actually do, which is a minor change that would have a big outcome? Okay. And obviously, once we've got the right task and the right equipment, we then get the equipment and we just go back and we keep assessing. So that's the trusted assessor model. And obviously through that, we have to show our reasoning, we have to have our professional behaviour, and we have to show our processes. The problem is what makes it difficult for us is this whole personal centre bit in the middle, which is their attitude, their culture, their beliefs. And some of that might be, I'm in a care home now, I don't have to do it myself. Unfortunately, or fortunately, we do have some people that when they hit care, they think it's a hotel. They don't necessarily see it as I'm here to be rehabilitated. It's more, but I'm here for you to look after me. And in some ways they're right, but in other ways that goes completely against our principles of nursing, isn't it, which is empowerment. So actually we may have to work on people about their own values and attitudes and beliefs and say, look, actually my role isn't to do this for you. The more I do for you, the less you're going to be doing for yourself, and the quicker you're going to decline and go down the hill. So it's this model of saying, look, our role is to promote your independence and get you back home. That's our role. Obviously, when we're in the end of life stages and we have got those people that can't do it, it's very different. But, you know, a lot of people in residential, they should still be doing it themselves. They may have medical conditions, but again, a lot of the medical conditions, if you spoke to experts, there's lots of things that you can do around it. It's their desire. If they haven't got desire to re-enable themselves, you're kind of on a losing battle, aren't you? So you need to document kind of what that is and what motivates them. And ultimately, down at the bottom in the red, you can see that risk taking. And the reality is, unless we take risks, we're never going to be re-abled, are we? And we've got that problem around Margaret, who's fallen over once, maybe she's broken her hip, and she's scared that if she does it again, and therefore that goes back to kind of medical conditions and difficulties. That's the bit we've got to work on, because actually if we could get Margaret up walking, it's a lot better. And we can go back to our falls assessments and all the other stuff that we could do, hip protectors and making sure the equipment's right. So there's lots of things that we can do to get them on board. So no different when you're going to go out and do a gathering information for trusted assessor. You're going to observe, you're going to write, and you're going to interview. So same things. So I want you to watch this video. Imagine this is your home, your service user's home, or a home that you're going to go to do an assessment. I want you to watch this, and then I want you to talk to me about all of the things that you've picked up on. Okay? There's no sound, it's just a video to watch. Okay, so we've just watched that. So imagine that was us doing an observation on somebody. This could be them in their own home or in your care home. They've managed to open the door and all that lot. What's your thoughts on what you saw? What does that tell you about their functional ability, what they can and cannot do?
They're able to walk, first of all.
So they're able to walk, first of all. Yeah, perfect.
They can lock and unlock the doors.
So that's a lot of dexterity, isn't it? To get a door and to turn, that's a lot of dexterity. So that's good hand-eye coordination, lots of movement in the wrists. Yeah, good, keep going.
Yeah, they can go up the stairs, which is...
So they've got that mobility and they've got upper body strength. Good, keep going.
Good eyesight.
Yeah, so they could see what they were doing, because to get a key in a door is a bit of a skill, isn't it? And you didn't see him misplacing his hand when he was opening the door or when he was going up the stairs. You could see all of that. Yeah, what else?
Got capacity to...
Sorry, what was that?
He's,
I said they've got capacity to live by their own.
Yeah, they may have capacity to live on their own. Ultimately, we didn't talk to him, so we don't really understand, but we could see that they understood that somebody was at the door. So we could assume there was a bit of capacity there to say that the doorbell went, oh, therefore I need to open the door. No different to if you knock on a door, your patients open the door, don't they? Or say, come in. So there is that capacity there, yeah. What else?
you can do independent.
So there was lots of independency being shown there, wasn't there? A lot of independency. So what we're saying is actually, if you've got upper body strength and you can pull yourself up and down stairs, you can definitely take a top off, can't you? Because the mobility in the wrists and shoulders are working. So I could see that you were pulling your arm above. So if you can get your arms above, taking your top off should be a task you can do. Would you agree?
Yes.
Yeah. So what we're saying is when we observe people, actually, their behavior tells us a massive amount of clinical data, doesn't it? Stuff that you wouldn't necessarily be thinking about, but actually when you observe it, you could go, okay, yeah. Now, let's just look at this door there. Just imagine we're going to go into a door. And we saw he was a little unsteady, right? We saw that going up the stairs was a bit of a struggle. What do we think about if he had to stand there and get into his house? What could we do to promote his independence? Because he's still got the step. Because if he's standing and he's a little bit wobbly, what could we do so he could still open his front door and put his key in the door? No different to if he was in the bedroom.
Have a Zimmer frame.
So he might have a frame that might help. I don't know whether that step's big enough to have a frame.
Walking stick.
A walking stick. Okay, so we could recommend a walking stick. That would keep you balanced. You could hold that and put the key in. What else would be an easier one?
An outside frame, like
A grab rail on the door.
Yeah.
We put a rail on the door. He could just hold that grab rail and open the key quite easily. So in people's bedrooms, going into their doors, is there a rail that they can hold on whilst they open the door? Because then they could open their door probably a lot easier. But if they're a little unsteady on their feet, sometimes that coordination in opening the door can be a little bit tricky, can't it? But if you've got a rail that I can hold on to, and then I can push down on the handle to open through, that small adaptation by putting the rail on outside makes a difference for their accessibility. Yeah, is that helping? So it's about looking at the environment and the world through their eyes, going, this seems an easy task, but actually, what could we do to make it even easier? And equally, there's half steps that you can get. So just with that activity, you can kind of just see some of the things that you can do just to make the world a bit easier for the people in which you're using your services. Or indeed, if you are an enablement service, so you're doing that 6-week bed thing from hospitals, you need to make sure that if somebody's going back home, that they're able to get through their front door. Okay, wonderful. So when we interview for trusted assessors, what we're interested in is, what are you hoping to achieve? You know, what is it you want to do independently? And actually, if you asked the people you look after, what would you like to do independently? I'm sure 9 out of 10 times it's going to be things like go to the toilet on my own. I don't really want that. You know, I want to do that for as long as I can. I want to eat independently. It's all of those little things. What do you have difficulty with? I'm sure they're going to tell you, or what you can see. What's the history with these difficulties? So when did it start? What could you do beforehand? What can you manage at the moment? So what's your strengths? What's your medical conditions? And what would help you? And have you had any falls? Because that falls bit is important. It forms part of that falls assessment. So again, if we're thinking about adaptations, let's just go back to basics and see what it is we can and cannot do. So let's say I struggle going to the toilet. Okay, just give you the answer there. So the task here is you've got a patient that wants to go to the toilet. What's the steps in which you need to do to go to the toilet?
First of all, we need to know how his mobility is, or her mobility is.
Okay.
What can you
Is there
do?
something before that? Think about yourselves when you go to the toilet. Run it through in your mind. What's the first thing in your mind or your body when you need to go to the toilet?
I know I have to go, so that's the first thing.
Okay, so you get a signal.
A signal, yeah.
So either I know that I need to go because I get that bladder feeling, it's going to my brain, or alternatively, maybe I've been catheterized for a long period of time and I've lost that sensation. Maybe cognitively, dementia, I forget that I need to go to the toilet. So the first trick there is, what could you do to enable me? Think about assistive technology as well. What could we do to remind people to go to the toilet?
Asking them.
We
If
could
you
ask
need the
them,
toilet.
but if I ask you, I'm not enabling you, am I?
Mm.
So what could I do? Imagine I'm not there. What could I do?
Alarm.
Could set an alarm. Yeah, absolutely. We could use new modern devices. We've got Google, we've got Siri, we've got Amazon, we've got all of these reminders now, which you could just set a reminder that says, Steve, do you need the toilet at 11? Steve, do you need the toilet at 12? And that alarm could just go off and repeat, couldn't it? So you don't have to be there now to remind me. That could do it by itself. Or you could go quite old school and write a note and stick it on the door somewhere, couldn't you? So I could see it and go, you know, do you need to go to the toilet, and just ask that question. So we've got the old fashioned way, a little reminder, or we've got the electronic way. But if it's about promoting independence, the last one would be asking somebody, do you need to go to the toilet? So when we go to the toilet, so we've got capacity to recognize that I need to go to the toilet. What's the second problem? So I go, I need to go to the toilet. I think Clara said it. Somebody said mobility, didn't they?
Yeah, mobility.
Okay, so am I able to get to the toilet? So let's just say I am able to go to the toilet, but I'm a little bit wobbly. So what could you do to help me with my mobility if I'm just a little bit wobbly?
I'm gonna support you to do this.
No, you're not supporting me, you're promoting my independence.
Yeah.
Provide
Zimmer frame.
aid.
So, okay, a Zimmer frame. Problem with Zimmer frames, they get in the way, don't they? Especially in small toilets. Because then
There is no room.
yeah. So you could get a toilet frame that goes around the toilet and it just plops around. You could do handrails and bars so they can hold on to the bar. And remember, between men and women, men normally stand up. So a bar at hand height, so I can lean forward and go to the toilet. And I would need one lower down if I was on the toilet to help me up and down. Okay. What's the next problem I've got? So I'm standing there, I'm holding my bar, but I need a wee. What am I now got to do?
To get undressed.
Got to undo my stuff. So again, if I'm a gentleman and I want buttons and zips, is that really helpful, or would I be better in elastic waistband stuff so I can just pull it up or down?
Yeah, it's better elastic.
So you could just change my trousers to elastic, absolutely. Okay, so we've now managed to undo my trousers. I'm now doing that. Now what do I need to do?
It's on the toilet.
Yeah, so I can either now do what all men do, which is stand up and miss the toilet bowl, or sit down and try and aim for the toilet. So there'll be that sitting down, and I can have a bar to help me down, or maybe I've got a frame around me. Or alternatively, if I'm standing up and I'm weeing all over the place, there are funnels that you can give me, and I can put a funnel over my penis and aim into the toilet so it doesn't go everywhere, depending on what it is we're doing. Or you could just give me the tortoise bottle, the urine bottle, couldn't you?
Maybe urine bottle.
Yeah, so you can give me a urine bottle. Okay, so after all of that, what am I going to do? So after
Washing, cleaning.
yeah, so afterwards, you need to think about, how am I going to purchase at the sink? So do I need to purchase a stool so I can sit down and wash my hands? Or is there a bar that I can hold on to while I turn the taps on and I can wash my hands? Then the frame can be outside and I'm off again. And whilst it sounds quite a lot of adaptations and adjustments, if you make all those adaptations and adjustments once, you never have to assist that person to toileting again for a very long time. So actually, the benefits of doing all of that, think of the hours in which you would save and the independence in which you've got. So again, lots of different things there to think about. And equally, you can have the raised toilet seats that you can see on there as well. So there's lots of adaptations. So if I were to come into your homes, would all your homes demonstrate those adaptations to the people that you look after? Or are they quite standard rooms? No one's going to say. Do you have standard rooms, or have you all got adapted rooms?
We have adapted rooms.
Yeah, some homes are really good at it. Some homes aren't so good at it. And there's no right or wrong here. But the reality is, the more we adapt to that person and those adaptations and adjustments, the easier it is for us as carers, and the easier it is for the people which we look after. And that's the difference between a good and outstanding in a CQC audit. You know, because when we talk about empowerment, the very first thing that I'm going to say to you is, how? Demonstrate it to me. Show me what empowerment looks like. Because you have to show me through the activities of daily living, all of those things. And actually, we've just seen 2 examples, going to the toilet and having something you can drink, all of the things in which you do. So tasks, we just have to look at the difficulties, what can we do for that person, what the experiences is, can they complete the task, and can they complete the task independently? So environment, again, does the environment allow equipment? Some homes don't, you know, if they're old buildings, you can't do it. Equally, who else uses the property? So if you're in a residential home and you've got a raised toilet seat, you know those big plastic chunky raised toilet seats that you get? They're great for some people, but not so great for others. And I don't know if you've been in a situation in your career where you get to use one of those because the toilets are all filled. I don't mind admitting I have, and it is the most uncomfortable thing to sit on, is a raised toilet seat. Like, my brain couldn't work it out. It just didn't feel right. It was really uncomfortable. I kind of felt I was all over the place. And actually, in care homes, some people need them, some people don't. So if you've got them fitted in universal areas, then actually, are we then disempowering those that are enabled? So equipment and adaptations in private areas works really well, but in universal areas, if you've got equipment that has to be constantly lifted on and off, that could be quite tricky, couldn't it? Equally, we've got lots of other risks there to think about, you know, how big the property is, what the access is, can we use technology? A lot of the older care homes, where they're over multiple floors, you don't really get Wi-Fi on the top floors, do you? You normally get it down at the bottom, but it doesn't really go over all of the homes. So assistive technology may work in some rooms and not in others. And equally, what equipment do you have already and what equipment can you get? It's all right doing all of this, but what you may find out is that you can't get the funding for the equipment that you've then prescribed. So it's about thinking about, if we are going to do this, can they self-fund for that equipment? Can we get it from the social workers, or can we get it from charities? Okay. So the reality is our role is to promote independence. We can demonstrate better techniques for using equipment. I guarantee when I come out and do your assessments on one-to-ones, if you've all got those profiling beds, I will ask you to demonstrate the profile bed to me. And I will see how many of you can optimize the profiling beds. The reality is, if you've got a profiling bed that goes up and down, you can do a lot more with that bed than what most people think you can do. And again, it's about those minor aids, adaptations, equipment and minor adjustments. And again, not being afraid to refer on. So if you've got somebody in your home and you know that they need something else, you know, you need to do that referral to say, look, can we not get it? Every assessment should be individualized, needs to be reviewed, you need to find the problem, safety of others, safety for yourself, correct use, and that's the most important thing of equipment. So if you're going to have handrails, there's a certain height that they must be for individual people. And again, we'll show you how to do that. And obviously that things are fitted correctly. So as a trusted assessor, you should be able to measure up a chair, a bed, a handrail, because these are all basic equipments. And you should be able to use, you should be able to install the toilet seat, the sliding boards and the bath equipment, okay? Oh, and equally, the last one on there is maintenance. So with your equipment in your homes, if it's bought in, who is then going to maintain it? So the home may have a certain duty of care to pack test and things like that. But if it's equipment from local authority, who holds the responsibility for that equipment and adaptations? Remember, straightforward solutions are in people's homes or in your homes are low cost, conditions should be static, and the service user should be able to complete the task, but may still be struggling. So what it means by that is, you saw that man climbing the stairs and he was struggling a bit, but he could still do it, couldn't he? And it's okay to struggle. We don't need to replace anything if people are struggling. So they just need to be able to complete the task. And if they are struggling and it takes a bit longer, that's okay. The problem that you have in home care is time. So I appreciate the fact that enablement is a time factor thing, isn't it? And I know how busy you all are, but we are talking about in the ideal world. Okay, so health and safety then, looking at obviously our roles and responsibilities. If we're going to recommend equipment, we need to make sure that we've assessed for the hazards and the risks, and we obviously need to make sure that we can reduce the hazards to at least a low risk. So, risk perception. What do I mean by risk perception? What do I mean by that?
What is our perception about risks? What do we think the risks are?
Yeah, absolutely. Because what we may see as a risk, you may not. So for example, if you're a keen mountain biker, I would look at that and be completely terrified. But if you're keen on doing mountain biking, you might go, well, that's okay, it's completely safe. I do open water diving. I love diving. People think I'm mad. And it's unsafe, but I think it's completely safe because I know about it. So again, we know that we've got these unwise choices. It's just about identifying them and just making sure that we can justify it. So what we should be doing, if we're going to recommend equipment, Zimmer frames, walking aids, bars, chair lifts, table stands, whatever, we must perform that task with the person. We must watch them. We must make sure that they can do it independently and safely. Okay, we can't just assume that they can do it. And what we do is, it's this balancing scale, isn't it, of promoting independence and safety. Because if we take away their independence, then they have no quality of life. Yeah, do we all agree with that?
Mm.
So the reality is, yes, you could fall over and hurt yourself, but if you don't take the chance, sitting down getting pressure sores every day is much worse for you. So we need to be looking at levels of risks. So I'm not going to run through that. So let's just talk about seating then. When we assess a patient for seating, we need to be at the 90 degree angle. So in other words, when we sit in a chair, our back should be straight, our head should be up, and our elbows should be at 90 degrees. Okay, that's the first rule. As we then sit back in the chair, our bum should hit the back of the seat and our knees to the floor should be at a 90 degree angle, with our feet touching the floor. And when our feet are touching the floor, that should be at a 90 degree angle as well. So the only way we can do that is by measuring that we've got the right chair for the right resident. Okay? And what we do under the knee, so where you see that first 90 degree angle down on the knee, you pop your pen, get your tape measure and measure it from knee to floor. And that gives you the length of their leg. Okay? That's the length. Whatever that comes up with is what the length of the height of the chair should be. Okay, so if you've got a cushion on the chair, you have to push the cushion down because the bum would push the cushion down. And it's the length, the height, sorry, from the top of the chair to the floor of the chair. And that is the right position to be sitting in, the 90 degree angles. And with that, you're able to stand up and sit down properly. So if people are using all of the same chairs, it can't possibly be personal centered, can it? Because we don't all have the same leg length. Okay. So do we think that this chair is too low, too high, or just right?
Too high.
Yeah, it's too high. What about this one?
Perfect.
This is all right.
Yeah, looks good. This one?
Too
No,
high.
it's too high.
Too high. Yeah. So again, we can see straight away, can't we? But I've seen this in care homes time and time again, because people sit in other people's chairs and therefore each provide their own risk, don't they? If she tries to get out, she's likely to fall over. The one that's this one is likely to topple forward. So the reality is we should be personalising the seating for the people in which use them, shouldn't we? This one?
Too low.
Low.
Too low, good. So equally, we need to think about the width. So when somebody sits down, you should have the bum in the middle and you should be able to put a fist either side of their bum to hit the chair. Okay, so that's how we would measure the width of the chair. So the person sits in the chair and there should be enough space for you to get a knuckle either side of them. So if we look at the first one, what do we think?
It's not right. Not
No,
enough
it's too
space.
tight. This one,
Yeah, it's all right.
a little bit
Space here
better.
and here.
Yeah, and this one?
Yeah.
Too
Yeah.
high.
So again, if we're too wide for the chair, it's too difficult to get out. If there's too much room in the chair, we're at risk of falling. So just by doing a simple chair assessment with the people in which we look after, you can promote their independence by movement because it means they can get in and out of the chair properly. We reduce the risk of falls because we've got the right equipment for the right person. Yeah. So the backs of the chairs should obviously be high enough to support the neck, the shoulder, and the back of the head and the neck. So when we go back. So again, when they're sitting in the chairs, to be able to push forward, we should have the high backs to obviously promote that neck and back for them. So this one we can see is okay. This one is clearly not enough. Yeah, happy with that? So again, if you see people sitting in the wrong chairs, you're able to kind of now see that. So as I said, when we measure somebody, we need to push the cushion down on what they're sitting on, measure the lowest point of the cushion to the floor, and that length should equal the length of their leg. And if it's not the right height for the person. Okay, so here we go. You've got your example there. So what we would do here, you can see in the figure, you're going to go from the kneecap down, and it's the back of the knee. When you measure, what the best thing to do is get a pen and just slide it in the back of the knee, and then you, from the pen, measure to the floor. Okay, so that's where you need to go. So it's literally in the back of the knee. Okay, and that gives you the right thing. And obviously make sure that they're in flat footwear. The knee's already at a 90-degree angle, and hold the tape measure from the top to the bottom. Measure from the floor to the thigh behind the knee, and then you can hold and use a pen to help measure from the top. Okay, so this works for beds. So when we say what height should the bed be, if somebody's going to get in and out of the bed should be at the 90-degree angle for them. So it's when we lower that bed in the morning to get them out, it should be at the 90-degree. And actually, you can have a little marker on the wall. So when carers are getting patients out of bed, you can say, look, this is the height that the bed should be at. Because again, there's always a debate in the morning about how or what height we go to. So these are simple things that you can do to promote independence. So when we're talking about promoting independence, this is what we're talking about. So equally, other solutions, we already said was about the purchasing stool, the perching stool. That's what a perching stool looks like. To have that at the right height, you would just add 5 inches. So whatever their leg length is, you would add 5 inches, and that puts the perching stool at the right height for them. And again, you can see if you sat on that, it's slightly higher because it helps you tip forward. It's great. If you had a hip replacement, you'd add 5 inches, because again, hip replacements do. And again, if you're going to hire a bed that's not a profiling bed, you can get those elephant feet to lift the bed to the right height as well. So each adaptation, you can add 5 inches on just to get it the right height. What you're looking for is the leg measurement minus the height and equals the razor height that you need. Okay. Yeah, so for your hip replacement is 2 inches and your bed's 3. And that's just based on however long their legs are. So it's just that 90-degree angles that you want to use. Types of razors. So as we were saying, if you need to raise a chair, if you need to raise a table, if you need to raise a bed, this is what you can prescribe. So you've got your multi-purpose razors, your elephant feet, you've got your Morrison Alexandra bars. So you can use any of those to raise a table, a chair, or something in the dining room. Because again, even dining room chairs are really low, aren't they? So they won't be sitting at that 90-degree angle to help people in and out. The bed ones, again, you can use the bars. There are static ones or single ones that go underneath just to raise them up. I think now most of the beds in nursing homes are all profiling beds, aren't they? I know some of the older fashioned residential homes still have old beds. So again, if you were doing that reablement work and you're sending people home, you know, domestic beds are quite low, aren't they? So if you were going to be sending somebody home, you could just make sure that they've had their bed hired just so they could get in and out of their own bed. Yeah, happy with that? So normally on a face-to-face class, I'd get you to measure up and you'd all get the right equipment, but we're not going to do that. So bed levers. So getting somebody in and out of bed independently, you can have a bed lever. It's just the bar that goes under the mattress, and again they can then pull themselves up and they can swivel themselves around, and they're easy to use. And you can see down in the corner here we've got the it's like a dog collar on a lead. You can hook that over your leg and swing your leg up. So if you need to move your leg, let's say you've had a stroke or you've lost mobility down one side, you can use that kind of dog collar to flip over your foot to lift your leg up and down. So actually, on the grounds that somebody has a little bit of mobility, they can still perform these tasks independently, just with the right equipment and adaptation. Okay. Commodes. So we all know that we use commodes in nursing homes. Again, commodes should be at the right height. So they need to be height adjusted. So again, if somebody's using the commode, you would measure the chair, measure the legs and adjust the height of the commode. And I know they're never changed because when I try to change them, they're normally rusty. But equally, if we're promoting independence, we can think about, well, does the person want to empty their own bowl? And if they do, because again, it's a personal thing, do we need a trolley in their room? So once they've used the commode, they could put the bowl on the trolley and push it to the toilet. So again, just simple things to think about if they wanted to do it. Again, around their dignity, thinking about the transfer and obviously the acceptance. The toilet paper, so if you're going to use a commode, what side are you putting the toilet paper on? Same as the wet wipes. Are you, using that either side? And what we know, you can get those freestanding toilet roll holders now, can't you? Which you can just put and move. Have you seen them in Home Bargains? They're normally the roll holders that come out and they're stand free and you can move them. So again, if somebody's using a commode, that's quite a dignified thing that they can use there. And equally, there is a device now for people to wipe their own bottoms. It's a stick and it grabs the toilet paper and they can cleanse themselves. So I'll show you that as well. So again, just different things to think about promoting independence. Obviously risk assessments. So the bed leavers, consider them a bit like bed rails. Do the bed rail assessment, make sure that it's safe and it's appropriate and proportionate. And obviously if they've got confusion or dementia, is it going to be in their best interest or will it be a hazard? Just have a think about that. And equally, there is a certain requirement that there's a distance between the wall and the bar. And that's because the people falling and injuring between themselves. So if you do recommend bed leavers, make sure that you've got the right space and you can obviously refer on. Stairs, factors to consider with stairs. So first of all, is the client using the stairs correctly? Is it safe for them to do so? Are they able to do it with assistance? How often do they need to use the stairs? Do they have a weakness down one side? And how do they ascend the stairs if they need to urgently? Are the stairs free? Think about the health and well-being and the benefits for them to use the stairs. Now, a lot of you will have lifts in your homes now, I'm sure. But there are some steps in and out of gardens or little things in which you can do. You are able, once you're a qualified trusted assessor with the council, you're able to order grab rails and stair rails and things. And each staircase has a different type of things. So a straight staircase is quite easy. We can put a grab rail up one side. If you've got the platform to turn, you would need a rail on the right-hand side, then against the back wall, and then going up. And then the fan winding, you would have an additional rail either side. So normally, if you were going to let somebody use stair rails, you must have rails on both sides. Okay, so that's how it's safe to use stairs. If there's not a rail on both sides, I wouldn't be letting people use stairs. So again, you can get wooden handrails fitted quite easily. And again, probably not so much for your care homes or nursing homes, but if you were discharging people back to the community, this is something that you could be asking, which is, how are they going to manage their stairs? Have they got a rail on both sides to help them up and down the stairs? So when you measure the stair rail, you go from the bottom and you kind of slope up. What you need to be careful of in all stairs, when you look at promoting independence, the stairs is that lip and the depth and the width of the step. Because some old-fashioned properties have quite deep steps. Some have these little lips that hang over. So you're just looking at that for trips and slips hazards. So it's that nozzling and threads, and obviously the height of the step. Can they actually lift their knee to that height? If they can, great. If they can't, that's fine. And again, what you would do, you would measure from the top step to the bottom step, and that's the length of the handrail that you need. Okay, so that's how we measure. And what we do, either end of that rail, you add 30 centimetres. So it just means that they can grab the rail a bit lower down, help themselves up either side, and there's that bit at the top to help them ascend off the top. Okay, so like we said, straight, that's relatively straightforward. Fan steps, you're going to do 2, and then a platform term there, you can see you've got a few more measurements in which you would do. And normally, if you were going to go to the equipment stores through the local authority, you would take a picture of the stairs and say, this is the size that I would need. You would take a picture, and then they would normally have somebody come out and fit a stair rail for you, because nobody's expecting carers to be fitting stair rails. Okay. So other considerations is what rails will you choose? So you've got wooden ones, you've got ones that have got lips and grooves, you've got the flat ones, or again, rail-wise, it's where will it be fitted and have you got enough space? And sometimes what you'll find with stair rails as well is if it's an older building, you can't fit it on the wall because maybe the wall isn't a structurally safe wall, because again, depends on how old your property is. So what they can do, they can do the rails where they fit them from the staircase. So you can see there, you've got the rail that goes from the floor up. Okay. So like that one. So it goes from the floor up. So it's not screwed into the wall as such, it's attached to the floor up. So there's different ones in which can be ordered through social services. The bar at the top of the stairs, the swivel bar at the top of the stairs is really useful. So this bar is really helpful. So once you've got somebody up the first flight of stairs, having that on the banister gives you that turning mechanism. So somebody can just hold that and turn themselves around. And again, keeps them completely independent and a safe rail for them to turn. So, I don't know why we got a bunny on the stairs. I'm not sure the relevance of the rabbit. What do we think about these stairs? If we were to put some rails on there, what would be the things that we would think of and the dangers? So imagine you're going to help somebody back into their home, or maybe they've got an annex in the house or a flat or supported living. What would be the concerns here? What could we do?
We need one more rail.
Yeah, so you could have one long rail going down on the side of the wall. What could we do with, what do we think is the concern when we get to the top of the stairs?
They will fall because they don't have what to hold on to.
Yeah, exactly. There's not a lot to hold on to. So what we might want to do is have another rail going under that window and then along, or alternatively, we can have that mop handle rail on that banister so they've got something to hold on to turn. So it's just about thinking, if I was in that environment, what would I need to do? And like you rightly said, equally, we're talking about clutter and trip hazards. We would recommend to remove all of that stuff so there's not, it's not in their way. Yeah, happy with that? So again, none of this is difficult. It's just seeing it through the eyes of the patient. What is that they're going to experience? So external rails, and this is what we were talking about in that video earlier. We're looking at stepping up into a house. What are we going to hold on to? Where can we fit it? And what side is the door frame and what side's the key thing? So again, just thinking about, if someone's had a stroke on their left side, should we just have the door swapped round to the right side? So actually they can balance better on the opposite side. Swapping a door round, granted, is a bit of a pain, but actually if it opens the opposite way round for that customer, because that's what makes it easier for them, it's a much better thing to do, isn't it? Because it makes it safer. And equally, external rails would be fitted by local authorities. You just would request them and say, look, I think if we're going to discharge Bob home, I know he struggled, but if we did that, it would definitely work. And again, there's your measurements there. So you'd always start from a standard height of 90 centimeters from the bottom up. And that's kind of where you are. Be mindful that if you do become a trusted assessor, they change the measurements. So some are in millimeters, some are in centimeters, some of them are inches. You would like to think that the councils could all work in one metric unit, but they don't. So if you do request stuff, again, just take a picture, make sure you've got the right heights, etc. for them. Half steps. So half steps are really useful because we can drop those outside of people's doors just to give them a platform in. They're generally quite easy to install, and once they're in, it obviously gives a platform. It bridges that step from over the lip to the door and getting into a property. So again, sometimes when you think about the nursing homes, some nursing homes of the older buildings have the step on the back door. A lot of the new nursing homes have the patio doors, don't they? But if you think of those old-fashioned ones, you normally have a step in and out. So again, it may be that a half step is a really good way with a grab rail to get people in and out of your home. Oh, there you go, like that. Yeah, so have you all seen those? Yeah, perfect. So looking at this one then for external rails, what would be the problem with fitting external rails here?
It's the bricks, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's the bricks, depends where you're going to put it. So that you may need a rail, first of all, on the outside, just to get into the front porch, and then you're going to need one by the front door. What else is the problem?
Remove the stones on the front.
Yeah, there's lots of trip hazards there, isn't there? So if somebody's a little bit unsteady, that's a lot of clutter going on there. What else is a problem?
The depends how high. I wanted to say the key.
Yeah, you're right. So actually, where you see where that door frame is, there's not going to be anywhere where you could put a rail for him to hold to put that key in, because there's not a lot of space. So again, when we're measuring or recommending, we just have to be sure, because when you look at the rails that are put in, they're about that wide. So there needs to be enough space for that to go in. And again, if the door's going to open, will it hit the bar as it comes through? Because that can be quite congested.
What about a hand holder on the frame door?
Yeah, absolutely. So you could do that. Absolutely, you could do that. And that's what we're talking about, enabling people. When we talk about enabling, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about seeing the world through their eyes, not just, oh, we're promoting independence, because we can all say we promote independence. It's actually the actions are doing it. Marvelous. Right. Okay. What would be the problem with this one?
Nothing to hold on when you go up the stairs.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's nothing to hold on to. And the problem that we have here is a Public Highway England issue. So the reality is you would need a rail just to get on that first step, wouldn't you? And where would you put the rail? And if you put it on the outside, is there a planning consent problem? So equally, when we suggest recommendations for people's homes or in the community or wherever, we have to think about, is it on their land or is it a Highways England thing? So you may need to get consent. Equally, who owns the home? If they're letting the home or if it's local authority, they may not get consent to have adaptations. So it's about just thinking about all of those things as well. And equally, if you were to have a rail up there, you'd probably have to have an external one that goes in the concrete going up, wouldn't you? So it's not attached to anything. And it's quite a wide step as well, isn't it? So could you narrow that in so the person can go up either side? Because that seems to me quite a wide step, doesn't it? But you could have a rail and a stick, depending. Or alternatively, is there a back door? Could you just put the adaptation on the back door? Do they have to use the front door? We'll never know, because I don't know where this photo is taken, but we always say maybe. This one, what do we think about this one?
there's a hold on it.
It's quite hard, isn't it? You've got a tiny little step there. Somebody's obviously done an adjustment and put the handrails on, but I'm not sure how you're meant to stand on those steps, hold on and open the key. It does seem a little bit cluttered, doesn't it? But the problem here is, if you see the stonework, probably suggests it's a listed building. So you may be allowed to put it on woodwork because wood can be replaced, but you can't put it in stone because the stone may be listed. So again, sometimes you have to work with what you've got. If you're going to recommend something, just be mindful that there could be a reason why that doesn't work. And these are the external rails, which you were just talking about. You could have one of those metal bars going up the stairs outside. Yeah, happy with that? Problem with this one?
Oh, it's too wide.
It's too wide, yeah. What else?
Don't know, it's too low, I think.
Yeah, there's no starting point, is there? Because what we're saying is you must have 30 centimetres either side of a handrail from the step. So that starts directly on the step, doesn't it? So actually, there should be a bit lower down that from ground level, I can lean forward to touch something. Okay. And the other problem that you've got, again, is maintenance. So if you have rails outside, who's maintaining them? Are they going to get rusty? Does the paint lift off? If they're wood, are they going to get splinters? And again, it's that upkeep, making sure that they're fit for purpose. Because you can see out here, there's a lot of weather damage, isn't there? Right, you'll be pleased to know that's the end of that presentation. We've got one more presentation after that to finish off the enablement bit. And then we've got managing health and the IM injections. So can I say we take 15 minutes break? Is that okay for everyone? It's been a long day, isn't it? You're like, Stephen, you've never talked this much and you're still going. So we'll see you all in 15 minutes.